And there we are, Charles. Welcome to Wednesday.
It's great to be here. It's great to be here.
Time to close in, as always.
This is one of my favorite movies, and we won't reveal how old you were when, or how old I was when I saw it. But this is a movie, and we've turned it into Opposite Land. In the real movie, it's a story about good mercenaries who are lured down to Africa to try to rescue a rebel leader.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, Lordy. And who then are double-crossed by their rich folks back in the UK. And what happens is they try to get out of Africa and save their lives. And it's quite bloody. It's quite action-filled. It's actually got some serious actors in it. So Richard Harris and Richard Burton.
But it's got the opposite of your buddy Sean Connery in it.
Exactly, Roger Moore, yeah.
Does Sean Connery hate Roger Moore?
I have never asked him that question.
Oh my God, that's the first thing I would ask. Do you hate Roger Moore?
Yeah. No, but this so we've turned this into Opposite Land. These are really bad mercenaries who have been enriching themselves. Every single one of these 3-4 people has gotten rich off of unregulated globalism, one way or another, has painted himself as a good person we ought to back, has had the temerity to go, in the case of Brennan and Obama and Clinton, and even Comey now, to go out front to the media and act as if they've been vindicated. They're all they care. They're selfless public servants. Don't look too closely at all my private jet travel, my big securities balances, the fact I've got all these mansions, I'm living high. Just don't look at that. I'm in this for you. Yeah. And so it really is, and we've talked about this many times, that this is a 30-year war against the average worker in rich countries like the U.S., and it's a fleece. It's just that. It's and I don't know if we have that picture of.
Oh yes.
But I mean, it's more than a bit ironic, I think, that when you go to the main landing page for the Clinton Foundation, what you have is you have a picture of Bill and Chelsea and teams of volunteers all wearing, surprisingly, fleeces.
Oops, that's not it.
Yeah, fleece.
There's so many emails between you and I, it's sometimes
well, you can just go to Google and get it.
That's not it either.
Okay. If you just go to Google and put in Clinton Foundation Annual, you'll get to the landing page. It's amazing. That's the right page. Yep. Look at this.
There they are. Fleecing.
Right. These are sort of fleecing. And what color are they, Jason? They're red.
Yeah, they should be purple.
Red is the Make America Great color. I mean, you would think that these would be blue, which is the color of the Clinton Foundation and of Democrats.
Well, purple, I'm saying.
Or purple, yeah.
Soros.
Yeah. But this whole thing, we're going to get into it in some considerable depth, this whole idea, and we see a lot of it this time of year on television. If you're watching cable news, you're going to see ad after ad. Indeed, because I punched the Clinton Foundation website so many different times when I'm looking for information that they filed, now when I go on to like Zero Hedge,
it's advertising.
Yeah, they're advertising me to give money to the Clinton Foundation. Yeah, like I'm really going to do that. I can't wait to do that.
Well, but that speaks to the intrusions of the the digital giants, Charles. I was watching the James Comey, you're talking about how this has been a 30-year plan. I was watching that Chris Wallace interview with James Comey again.
Was that an interview, or was that just like a softball?
It was a softball, but now they're saying like, oh, Chris Wallace really took it out of James Comey. And first of all, James Comey's like, I made a mistake. He's right. I was wrong. And it's like, okay, so here's where he's like trying to admit some culpability so that people who are pro James Comey can be like, he admitted it. But like 17 mistakes in anything.
Right. You can't have one.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. The FBI, 17 mistakes on a test in high school is a B-. Okay? So that's like not great.
Right.
FBI, and 17 mistakes in business. When I used to be running 21st Century 3D, we'd have a production to deliver to the CEO of Unisys or something, and one mistake would prevent it from getting there. It was a total deliver or die industry, and the vice president of the company even said to me after the first presentation that She liked that about my company and then hired us to travel the world with them. One mistake would have prevented it from going. How is 17 mistakes in something so important seen as a meh, it was my fault, my mistake? It's like,
Well, yeah, exactly. Or put more into the minutia of what we're talking about. I mean, contrast the approach taken against Jerry Corsi or
Right.
Paul Manafort or Roger Stone with the approach taken against Hillary Clinton and her associates. I mean, it's like the standard is if you're a friend of the Clintons and the Obama machine and the unregulated globalists, we're never going to prosecute you.
Right.
You know, every consideration will be shown you. You could say you're going to run for Secretary General of the UN, and that'll put you out of the nobody.
can't touch him.
Yeah, now we can't. You know. But Michael Avenatti, I mean, aren't you currently in jail?
Is he?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. He is in jail, I think.
God, that guy.
I mean, the law firm of Comey and Avenatti.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, my mistake. We just screwed up everything.
I mean,
Not a
if we
big
could
deal.
only do this, I know we can't do this, but if you could go in and take some Marx Brothers or Abbott and Costello or Laurel and Hardy stuff, which is all in the malarkey era that the average person wouldn't know about, you know, and then insert James Comey as the dumb lawyer and Michael Avenatti as the dumb.
I love it. The malarkey era. It's like Picasso's blue phase or something. We're in the malarkey era right now, Charles.
It's full malarkey.
Full malarkey.
3 malarkeys.
What's going on with Joe Biden? Has he threatened anyone lately or stolen any money or bled out the eyes?
I don't know, fat. It's like
Sort of.
it's really. I mean,
Christmas. Santa comes down the chimney. He's like, "Listen, fat, don't touch the cookies."
So let's go out back. I know you're 95, but let's arm wrestle.
Right.
I mean, he's the guy's absurd.
He is.
And now the story's coming out. It's not simply Hunter, you know, who is grifting off.
Oh, it's Biden's brother.
Yeah, in big ways. $1 billion grift.
Mike Moore has been talking about this on More Pain, the exclusive, sponsor-exclusive show on Patreon, for weeks. And it's apparently known around Delaware that these guys are a crime family. He's a mafia boss.
Yeah. And so, I mean, really, it tells you a lot about the condition of the leadership of the Democratic Party. And I don't mean to harsh on Tom Perez for being a moron. It's not because of his...
Is he the chairman of the DNC?
The putative chairman of the DNC. And I mean, it has nothing to do with his ethnicity. It has
But
to
why
do with
only
his...
putative? Because you're saying somebody else is actually doing
it's
it?
George Soros.
Ah.
You know, it's the big money behind the Democrats. And big money, the Koch brothers, behind the Republicans.
Many people Googling putative right now, Charles.
Is that right?
I mean, you know, if I wasn't being sued, I probably wouldn't know what that word means.
Yeah, putative.
Putative.
But back to compliments to the art department. I mean, I don't know how the art department was able to draw all these faces, because these are not photos.
Well, you know, these are people who are frequently painted, illustrated, and then you throw in a little Photoshop, whatnot, and you can kind of get it going where it needs to go. But of course, we've got little Barry Sortero, as David Hawkins would call him, B-Rock Obama, while Bill Clinton, James the Bitch Comey.
Exactly. He looks like Che Guevara's Caucasian cousin or something like that.
Right. And the commie John
Green
Brennan.
Ann.
Yeah.
Honestly, when you think about the state of our national security apparatus, it's very clear that it's in total disarray. Right? We've missed so many different things since 1945. Then you think through the process. So how does it work? A new president gets elected. Who decides the security clearance of somebody like Brennan?
Isn't
or
it Adam
Valerie
Schiff?
Jarrett? You know, and I have a sinking suspicion that the way it really works is that the president can override. It could say, so you elect somebody, you know, let's not talk about Barack Obama. Let's just assume there's some stumble bum out there who's going to, you know, wake up in a crack pipe haze and hear from, you know, George Soros, hey, you know what? You could be president of the United States. You don't get to sleep on this cardboard box anymore. In like 4 years, we'll clean you up. We'll send you around the world, make you a professor here, give you a law degree there. Not enough time to get your Rhodes Scholarship, but we'll clean you up. We'll run you in some corrupt state, put you in the Senate. Then we'll put you here. Then we'll put you in the Senate. Then we'll make sure all your rivals disappear, and you'll be president of the United States, but you'll be working for me.
It seems like being a crackhead is something these people should put on their resume, because I mean, it's working for Hunter Biden,
Yeah.
it's working for Stephen Halper. I mean, you and I were talking this morning, it was revealed a while ago, Stephen Halper was arrested for smoking crack in his car. The cops found him with the crack. Crack possession was the charge in 2014, vacated in 2015. We've heard nothing about this. He's lauded as a Cambridge professor. The guy's a crackhead.
Well, we know most. I mean, look at Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Gruber. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that many of these people are crackheads. And I don't make light of crack. Crack is a diabolic. Many of these drugs are not good, but crack is very dangerous. I'm aware of people who've fallen victim to it. You can take one try of it,
And that's it.
and that's it. And you
Right.
you end up not as Stephen Halper, but you end up dead.
Well, you could end up
Which-
like Stephen Halper, which might be worse.
Exactly.
But seriously, with these type of drugs, it's always like, who's sitting there like, yeah, all right, I'll try it. What could go wrong? It's like,
Exactly.
don't you realize? Look at all those faces of meth and heroin. Like, why?
Yeah, as people know, I'm very squeamish. And back in the 18th century, when I was in 6th grade or 5th grade, you had to go through this drug awareness video.
Yeah.
Which was all about, it was in black and white, awful sound, and it was all about
Reefer madness, was that
No,
it?
it was worse than that. It was these guys and women in white coats and the doctor apparatus lecturing you on the evils of heroin.
While smoking a Lucky Strike.
Yeah, probably. But then they take you through, and you have to watch somebody going through withdrawal on heroin, and that's something you see, I didn't need an excuse not to try it, but I was seeing that. It's like, don't even get anywhere near me with that crap.
But anecdotes and jokes aside, this concept of Stephen Halper being arrested for crack, it's like, you got a problem if you're driving around your. That's not the first time he's tried it. If he's alone in his car driving around with crack, there is a problem. And he was arrested, he was vacated, he did not go to jail. He continues.
He becomes an instrument of the conspiracy to implicate Trump.
And last night on More Pain, Mike Moore went into some detail about how Stephen Halper had direct involvement in the Iran-Contra affair. He was in the Reagan White House working on a spying operation against, before Reagan got into the White House. He was running a spy operation for G.H.W. Bush against Carter. So this is the same play all again with some of the same people, and they're trying to, I would think, hide Iran-Contra. Who was the fixer for Iran-Contra, Charles? William Barr.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned.
Yeah. Well, we will have to see on that. But I think kudos to the art department for yet another fantastic poster.
Thank you very much. Oh, and with all this chatter, I forgot to bring up the slides. Let me do that. There's so much going on. And actually, RN is in the comments already, Charles. I'm not a follower or a fan of QAnon. However, RN points out that 17 mistakes, the number 17, Q is the 17th letter in the alphabet, and it's certainly a remarkable coincidence. I don't know if that means that James Comey is QAnon.
No, he's not Q. I mean, people are contacting me about this Q stuff, and my father, who's very much still with it at 93.
93.
Yeah. Is fond of saying, when you talk to people about when people mention coincidences, he's fond of saying, think of the number of coincidences that you will never see, and it's an excellent point.
And there's an infinite number of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's just if you start thinking about, we only see through the prism of 20/20 or adjusted vision. We use base 10 numbers. There are a lot of things that you may or may not be all that significant as coincidence. On the other hand, if you apply, I jokingly refer to it as Ortel's first and only law, when you start putting the name of somebody in and with Clinton, and you start finding fraud after fraud after fraud. That's not a coincidence. That's not coincidence.
I think your father, if I, without even knowing him, might venture a probably inappropriate guess, might be talking about the world of physics and randomness. And with that, I agree. There in the universe, there are an infinite number of coincidences. But you take a group of 12 people who all knew each other in 1980 when they were rigging the SNL crisis and financing an illegal war in Nicaragua with drug money, and they're all back and getting arrested for smoking crack and covering up the same kind of deal. That doesn't seem like a coincidence to me.
Yeah. Well, what I see it where I come out, and maybe I'm overly hopeful here. I think we're in a place where a solution of covering up what actually happened does not work.
Yeah.
Because there are too many international players around who are not beholden to the United States, and there are too many gaping holes in the record, and the consequence of allowing all this to go unpunished, it will be chaos and anarchy, which I don't think suits anybody except people like Soros and the people who are trading on volatility. Right. So for the overwhelming majority of Americans who in the richest country on earth, what do they want to do? They want to have fun with their families, tend to their businesses.
Christmas shopping,
they
barbecues.
don't, holiday shop, whatever. They don't want, for a long, I may or may not be representative of the average American, but for a long period of time, up until August of 2007, my attitude on all this was, I don't fucking want to waste my time on this crap. What do we have all these tens of millions of people in government for? They should be fixing these problems. That's what their role is. I shouldn't have to do this. And so, but I think we're now in a place where you can't do that anymore as a citizen. Not just because I've decided and you've decided to come forward and open up your damn pie holes and make issues about all this. We have a system that has been corrupted by incompetent boobs like James Comey. To think that you're going to, show up wearing that brown outfit with his, unbuttoned shirt, and sort of answer questions as if he can just assume away the question. You ask me, Charles, are you sitting there wearing a blue jacket? And I say, well, it depends. I'm a jacket. I'm not sure if I'm wearing a jacket. I see a jacket. Well, that's your problem with your eyes. That's the level we are with this James Comey and the way he was dealing with Wallace. And the further approach of, it's not like when you go, let's say, as sadly is happening now, there's somebody going around Manhattan punching people to the ground and for sport.
Oh, that's old. That was the,
but there's a new guy
calling that, the punch game or something,
yeah,
the
but
knockout game.
But there's a new person doing this, and it's not like when that person is apprehended, he or she will have the luxury of saying, oh, yeah, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and I'm sorry about that. And why do we think about how to do things better in the future?
Right.
That's we should spend our time thinking forward, not looking backwards.
Right.
That's like, you don't get to do that. Hey, I'm a bank robber and I just stole $200 million, and you know what? I burned it.
So was that bad? Could I have not done that?
There are plenty of billionaires. I only stole $200 million. And let's think forward-looking. That's basically what the guy was saying. And then these morons in Congress, both in the Senate and the House, and the bureaucrats all sitting there saying, "Oh, this Trump, he's disruptive. He's a danger." Yeah, he's disruptive and a danger to these corrupt bureaucracies that are piling trillions of dollars of debt on this economy, which we cannot hope to repay in the near term. He's going to be disruptive to that. He's going to be disruptive to people like the Clintons and the Obamas who are using presidential foundations to fly around the world, Pasha class, and stay in presidential suites and stuff. Yeah, he's going to disrupt that. He's going to disrupt the shit out of that. And the people who are supporting it, hoping they can glom onto it with the McCain Institute, and who knows if Pelosi's probably have a foundation or will have one someday.
They've got to, no?
The Biden Foundation, I think, just I'm going to shut that down because it probably has 10 pieces of Cracker Jack in it and no money.
He said that? He's going to shut it down?
He said he would, yeah. And we have, anyway, well, we're in a place now where the true villain, I think, is being spotted by people across the political spectrum. It's not a Republican versus Democratic Kong game. It's unregulated globalism that works for George Soros, worked for Herb Sandler, who's dead. It worked for a couple billionaires across the spectrum. That you pay small money to the politicians, national politicians. You then the UN people are really easy to bribe, and you end up with this. Jesus Christ.
Well,
you're talking about stage of public service.
You're talking about bribing. Larry Nichols was telling me yesterday that he did some work with Uniden in the 80s or 90s, and it's a Japanese wireless phone company and stuff. And he said that the chairman of the company said that Japan learned their lesson after World War II, that they're not going to go to war with the United States, they're just going to buy it.
Well, good luck with that.
Well, he said it failed, obviously, but now the Chinese are doing that, and that they were paying off politicians is what they meant.
Effective April 25th, 2019, the Biden Foundation suspended operations.
That's why this is archive.Biden Foundation.
Yeah, what we could do here is we could simply lift that text and what date shall we put in where the Biden campaign suspended operations?
Yeah, I don't know.
Melanie Fonder Kay. That's a nice name.
Yeah. That's Joe Biden's foundation. He knows about foundations.
I think there's an L missing there.
Kale?
Melanie Fondler Kay.
That would be good. Yeah. She's a fondler, Charles. Okay, so slide time.
Yeah. So we're in this stage where I don't know if you do ski, so you know this thing. I remember when I went out west a number of years ago, a friend of mine from college was fortunate enough to be the son of the owner of a ski resort.
Wow.
So,
which one?
The name will come to me. It's in Utah.
Powder Mountain?
Not, but no, it's the big one.
Snowbird?
Snowbird, yeah.
Yeah.
His name was Dan. In college, he used to jokingly call himself Dan Bass of the smallmouth bass family. He is related to the other Lee Bass, who was the big oil money, who was also in my class actually.
I don't know any of these guys.
But so Dan said, why don't you come out and we'll do some skiing together? And we get to all this guy had done for his whole life was ski, and he went to college as well. But he went into development at Snowbird. And I'm working my ass off on Wall Street. I'm not skiing 100 days a year, and though I do know how to ski. And so we get out. He said, "Come on up. We'll go up before the mountain opens. We go up on the top." And he said, "Come on, this is my favorite run over here." And we come to a run that begins. You're looking down, and there wasn't a lot of snow, so it's heavily moguled, really steep. And the first step in this run is you have to jump off a cliff. And I looked at this guy, I said, Dan, are you out of your mind?
That's not your deal.
I'm like, he said, Charles, you're stressing too much. Trust me, it'll be fine. Be the mountain and jump. So, I was like 30, whatever, and I said, all right, I'll try it. And he's absolutely right, actually. I did, but we're at that moment. You're jumped off the cliff. You've got a mogul field down below you.
Be the orthopedic surgeon, Charles.
You're either going to be. No, we have in this messing between Trump and Obama and Clinton. We've jumped off the cliff now. The mogul field is down there, and there's not going to be a solution that says, "Oh yeah, put this all together, go back and do business as usual." That's not what's going to happen.
Right.
It's either going to be fully exposed, or partially, mostly exposed, the corruption, and people are going to be punished, right? Or Donald Trump is going to lose his fortune. And, so these are not...
What do you mean, like go to jail and everything?
Well, I mean, they're not going to... They can't. These corrupt people can't let, Donald Trump...
Like when you try to kill the king, you better hit.
You better, exactly. And so we're in that moment here. People shouldn't kid themselves and say, yeah, there's a way for Barr and, and John Podfather Podesta to get together in a bar and say, all right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll pull our guns back. You pull your guns back. We won't investigate Clinton. We won't investigate. You won't investigate Trump. We'll just, make nice, and Chelsea will be president in 2024 or something. That's not going to happen.
Oh my God, Chelsea is president.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. So, and I'm here to prove it. I did survive that experience, jumping off the cliff.
You probably felt a lot better about yourself and your skiing after that.
Yeah, it's actually true. When you don't, I found it to be true that when you're in conditions that are not icy, and you jump into a mogul field, if you know how to ski, it's actually quite pleasant. We've had Donald Trump was elected, and the crowds were there for Bernie because people know this 30 years war is crap, and they're sick and tired of either, the IBM, GE level suit corruption, or these idiots you see on advertisements who come up with, basically it's fundamentally the same sort of business. Hi, I'm Loom, or I'm Noom, or I'm this, some catchy name, some scruffy kid is trying to get you to sign up for, a home protection service or a weight loss scheme or something else. It's just the same thing as stuff that's out there, but they come up with a catchy name and a scruffy kid and a fancy ad budget, and you're supposed to it's like the scooter company, it just went belly up.
What scooter company?
Some scooter companies like Unicorn Scooter or something like that. And
they're making those ones that are laying all over the streets in Washington, D.C.?
Probably.
That's the stupidest thing. Bird or something?
Yeah, something like that.
God, I hated that.
And it went, these things go belly up, and they write a letter, like a Comey letter, saying, you've lost all your money and there's no way of giving it back to you, but, you enjoyed the ride.
Yeah.
I'm only 30.
Yeah.
I blew your money. Yeah. I've got more money.
I don't understand. It's like when I saw that, I just thought someone's going to trip over one of these and sue the thing out of existence. Maybe that happened.
Well, and people need to remember, actually, we've been at this game here, a low interest rate game, since January 1st, 2009.
That was to quantitative easing or something?
Right, to keep interest rates way down on the floor. When they're way down on the floor, and you know what happens, if you had money invested beforehand, suddenly you're a lot richer on paper because all your assets are worth a lot more because interest rates are lower. And so you're happy about that, you've got more money. But people coming up the food chain, they can't save because you get nothing, no yield on your money. And they get pushed into taking more and more risks and accepting these, get-rich-quick schemes, the scooter scheme, the Uber scheme, WeWork scheme, all this kind of stuff. So we've been living in that kind of environment for a long time, where really senior people on trading floors at banks across the world don't really have the institutional memory they need of how to survive in a moment where interest rates go back up again. So we've got this disruption. That's what people wanted, different approaches. Bernie wants to, to turn this country into Venezuela. Trump wants to turn this country into the 1950s and 60s, not from a racial perspective, but from an economic perspective, when the United States dominated the global economy. And those are radically different viewpoints. People without any wealth and with a lot of debt and with flimsy jobs, they're going to maybe sign up for the Bernie program because they're not going to check and see what happens in Venezuela, what happens in these dictatorships. They're just not going to check. Meanwhile, Bernie is not. If Larry David were running, actually running,
better chance than Bernie.
It would be. He'd be hilarious.
Well, Bernie is over. Bernie is officially your ex-girlfriend calling you a year later saying you want to go to dinner, and you're like, this is going nowhere.
That's right. All right. Yeah. Oh, the image of Bernie racing Joe Biden. Racing Zimmer frames. Zimmer frames.
Oh.
So I actually think, and I had the same feeling back in 15 and 14. It was, I was hoping for this. I didn't know that Trump in 15 would be the nominee. In fact, I was, thinking that maybe he'd pull out of it and he wouldn't go the distance. But so I can't say I foretold in March of 2015 that Trump would win, because he hadn't entered the race in March of 2015. But I got this very positive feeling about the whole thing, particularly as we got through the WikiLeaks, through the October surprise period, and then with the October 27th thing of the news that there were 340,000 emails that the FBI had but hadn't searched. I became very confident right before the election that we would win. Now, we won by a very narrow margin, tens of thousands of votes in three states. I think it's different. What's setting up now that is so different is that the insider crowd, the political crowd, could say about Trump, well, yeah, maybe he's got a lot of money, but his father gave it to him, and it's, business is very different than politics. He doesn't know anything about politics. And even I and others, would say, hey, there's a point. If you take somebody, Jason, you say you're a Hollywood guy and you're smart and you know a lot about you're a business guy, so fundamentally you could run a chain of burger joints.
Not really.
Well, I mean, people will
Maybe.
say that. I mean, that's the whole premise of going to Harvard Business School. You go there to get an MBA. Management's management. If you can manage this type of company, you can manage that. There is a school of thought that.
Yeah.
But when you say that somebody, because he or she is successful in politics, can be a successful military commander,
Right.
Or,
that makes no sense.
or business
Intelligence or whatever.
Yeah, it's not true. And so I think a lot of people thinking about Trump and his crassness and all the negative stuff that was being said about him either didn't vote in 2016 or may have voted against him. Now you're seeing testimonial after testimonial. This is in December, before the election. There's a whole another freaking baseball season ahead of us, just to put it in context. And those go on forever.
Yes.
And here you see person after person. I see it on my Twitter feed. I see it on news articles, whatever, saying, I voted against Trump, but quite frankly, this impeachment charade and what the people are doing and coming on top of Kavanaugh is so ridiculous. We cannot let these ass clowns, have the keys to all three branches of government, which is what will happen
Right.
if a Democrat gets elected and they lose control of the House and Senate. We can't let that happen because we see how absurd this is. And I think this is being set up. Now, it's a long time between now and November of next year. We could have calamities, and I don't wish those on.
We've got one happening right now.
No, I'm talking about real calamities, like another 9/11, like we could have an economic crash, we could have big companies fail in China, we could have Pakistan start a nuclear war with India. I mean, we could have stuff that would really...
I'm worried about somebody doing a nuclear something here.
Why worry about it?
Good point. We'll be at ground zero. Well, because if it's not an actual nuke, if it's just some sort of like nuclear terror thing, that could be a slow burn and kind of not good.
Right, but I mean, there's a long list of things we could... I'd be more worried about, aliens landing, because that would not end well for us.
Right. I'm more worried about an EMP or
Well,
somebody like, doing something that would render New York City uninhabitable. I mean, think about it. When they had that, there was a fire at an electrical plant in Ohio, and that knocked out electricity for like a week or more in 2003. And it was so strange because they said, oh, well, we have no idea what caused this, but we know it wasn't terrorism. It's like, what kind of answer is that?
Totally believable. I didn't believe that crap.
But the point is, if the grid is so weak that a fire in Ohio can shut down New York, somebody somewhere is thinking about what can we blow up that'll just...
Right. Yeah. Well, why don't we jump into the slides, because I know we're pressed more mindful of the time.
Yeah. Never pressed, Charles.
Yeah. So if we go to the next page.
Did we tell everybody about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
This page, yeah. So for those who are new to the experience, this is a different approach. We didn't, yeah.
Sorry.
This is a different approach where we're trying to engage you, the viewership, and it's been very successful, frankly. Many of you have gotten involved and have pushed various levers around the world to get governments moving and interested in actually doing something once Donald Trump and the Justice Department and others land the way they need to land. I noticed one of our most loyal viewers has been focusing on the fact that the Attorney General of Arkansas paid a visit to Donald Trump recently. The governor did the same thing, and the FBI office, which has FBI Little Rock, has an actual Twitter handle, made an announcement recently that if you're aware of corruption, please contact us. So I would like on this show, I guess we only have close to 90,000 viewers at this point, or subscribers. Yeah, there we go.
Wow. Oh, hey, this is the bridge. Isn't the Clinton Foundation somewhere near
Yeah,
this?
right near there.
Wow.
So I would like to make a small request for people who have time on their hands and an interest. I think it would be really fun to have our viewership send an individual tweet of each one of our now 196 podcasts to FBI Little Rock.
You better be careful. George's brother might sue you for a denial of service attack on the FBI.
We're not doing a denial of service. We just
I
want to
know,
make sure.
but that
They're
won't
saying
stop them.
they asked if we have any information about corruption, and here we've got all this information.
Charles, is this them picking you up from the roof of your apartment building?
That's Kansas City.
Oh. You sure do get around.
Yeah.
Iced Ozarks. Interesting.
Yeah. So I think, honestly, I think it'd be a good move, and I'm hoping actually that these people particularly in Little Rock, but also in New York and California and other places where the illegal fake Clinton Foundation is, and Boston, is pretending to be a charity, when we'll go in again and pound this into pulp that there is no Clinton Foundation organization. There is no legal organization that meets the simple tests of being a legal organization. And as we've talked about in the past, only organizations can get tax exemption under U.S. law and keep it. So what we've been trying to do here is to relate to a wide and growing audience. And Jason, I think you're up to what, 80 some odd?
89,000, but what's happening right now, Charles, is that the subscribership on YouTube is in a bit of a decline. And I suspect that some sort of social engineering operation flooded in those 4,000 subscribers. Then there was the strike that's preventing live streaming. I mean, again, there's all kinds of combinations of things that could be done. YouTube is a computer network, computer software, and if you know how to do just what, there's things you can do to it that I'm not necessarily privy to. But the best way that people can counteract the social engineering strike attack method that's preventing live streaming is to become a sponsor on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth.
Yeah. Now, also, we love constructive criticism, and I got an excellent suggestion from a loyal viewer urging me to do a summary of, or a guide to, if you could only watch 3 of these, what would you want? 5, 10, 20?
Desert island, what 3 episodes of Sunday with Charles?
And it's a fair point, and actually it's something I need to do anyway, to go back and think through the different strands, because maybe there are things that we haven't gotten to yet that we need to spend more time on. So I will do that. It'll take me some time to do it, but I don't know, Jason, perhaps we should put up the playlist. So.
Right. Yeah, for people who are, I think I actually had it over here. People who are just coming to the show now, you can really get caught up on all of the episodes. What are we up to here, Charles?
This was 196 today.
Wow, we've got to plan a special 200th episode, but all of the episodes of Sunday with Charles and Charles Ortel is Closing In are located on this handy-dandy playlist on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel. That's the main YouTube channel for Crowdsource the Truth. But from now until March 2020, live streams cannot play on the Jason Goodman channel. So people who want to follow the live streams while they're live want to make their way over to Crowdsource the Truth 2 YouTube channel and subscribe there. And of course you can get them on Patreon and Subscribestar. When you want to access Charles's presentations, the slide presentations, you just want to go to any of the videos that you're interested in, and in this description beneath each video you may have to click on the words show more, and that'll reveal the links that you need to access the presentation, as well as the sponsorship links and some additional pithy writing about that particular episode. But people can download these, Charles, to their own computer. There is a handy dandy little download icon right here in the corner, and once you click on that you can save it, print it out, follow along, do all kinds of things.
Yeah. And we like this approach. I mean, what we're doing, what we're trying to do is blend some of my experience in banking and making high-level board presentations around the world with Jason's experience in Hollywood and elsewhere, that you need a sort of a mix. You got some people who are very visual and very word-oriented, who don't like numbers, and you've got other people who are very detail-oriented, who love words and numbers and want something printed out so they can take notes while they're listening. And so this approach allows you to do both. If you don't want to dwell on the slides, you don't have to. But if you want to print the slides out beforehand and have them ready and take notes on them, you can do that. If you want to pull them down in electronic format, you can follow the links. So we think that's, so we're trying to spread a lot of knowledge. This is not a task of simply putting Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea in prison where they richly belong. This is a task of trying to raise consciousness around the world about how these supposedly benign institutions, charities operating internationally, can actually be a cover for gigantic frauds. And on that front, we don't have a special thing today about it. but because of my relationship with my former in-laws, there was a huge scandal about the Mormon Church.
When did that happen?
Yesterday.
I didn't hear
There's
anything about it.
It's a gigantic scandal. A whistleblower has come forward alleging that the Mormon Church is sitting on $100 billion US.
Where'd they get that?
From their loyal. The deal in being a Mormon is you give 10% of your income away to the Mormon Church, and if you ever have problems, they cover you for life. That's the basic deal.
It's kind of an insurance policy, but so what's wrong with them doing that if people voluntarily enter into that?
Well, because the money was supposed to go for charity, and the allegation of the whistleblower is that's not what happened.
It's like, what's that guy David Jeffs is buying Cadillacs and driving around?
Oh, Maharaj, Guru Maharaj Ji. You know, when you see these gurus who've got 50 Rolls Royces, you should be asking yourself, do I really want to give my inheritance away to you, Guru Maharaj Ji? You know.
It's very sad when people enter into a religion with the best intentions and then that turns out to be a way that other people manipulate them. I think that happens a lot.
Well, that's why I always say, I mean, if you could show me a religion that does not have the equivalent of a collection plate, you know, or the argument that we need to take money from you for this reason or that reason, I'll listen. You know, but show me a religion that is basically an economic contract, I'm not going to listen. So if we jump in, we've got a few things. There's a lot of news in this most recent week. The first point I'd like to make is that the idea that Congress, that the president is subordinate to Congress, whether the House or the Senate, is rubbish.
It's wrong.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that you would learn, that Nancy Pelosi learned in 1750 when she was in high school or whatever, and is forgotten 17 times since. I mean, this is these people in Congress. You should have to pass a basic test and, you know, take continuing education courses on what the hell is in the Constitution. I mean, the founders basically wanted to have real tension among the three branches: the judicial, the congressional, and the legislative and the executive branch. But they had the experience under the Articles of Confederation of a weak executive. They had made the president basically be the president of the House of Representatives, or somebody drawn from the House of Representatives who was hobbled. That person did not have the authority that person needed. Hence the chaos and anarchy from 1782 to 1789, which led the Constitutional Convention to come up with this new improved approach that actually has worked pretty well for many decades, indeed several centuries. So this idea that you know, somebody who's actually fat, Nadler, you know, would get up there, listen fat, and sit there and yell at people when they put cheese on his hamburger, as apparently happened.
You didn't tell everybody about that.
Yeah, there's a story on Free Republic about somebody witnessed him recently on an Amtrak train, you know, yelling at the person on the Acela for putting cheese on his hamburger. Now, I think there is a thing about you can't mix dairy and meat.
Oh, because he's Jewish, maybe. Yeah. But believe me, they're not serving kosher hamburgers on the train anyway. So, like, what the hell is he getting upset about? That's absolutely stupid.
Yeah. This is pretty funny.
I mean, you got to be thinking when you're a public figure like that, even if something pisses you off, you better throws a hissy fit over cheese on the hamburger. Now we're going to have Jew comments from here until next Christmas. But you know what's also interesting? So this is like the first class section of the train. This is a much more expensive ticket that gets you there no faster.
Right.
And you're still eating the same, you know, cardboard hamburger. These guys should not be able to ride first. I don't ride first class on the Amtrak train.
Well, even more. I mean, it's just who's on the board of Amtrak? Under Biden was on the board. And who was getting free rides in Amtrak? Joe Biden. Here's an example of business-government cooperation. How fucked up are the finances of Amtrak?
I love it that this was a citizen journalist who, through social media, caught this guy being an a-hole.
Yeah, well, actually, he's not really a citizen journalist. Brad Blakeman is a former George W. Bush, or H.W. Bush.
So he's a political operative also riding in first track on it, first class on Amtrak.
Yeah. But it's pretty amusing. Anyway, the idea that that Hillary put out a tweet talking about 750 historians, or saying that, you know, he needs to be impeached, And I said, I think the spelling of that is hysterians. They're not historians. And the idea that this guy Nadler, who I ran into him once spoke at a conference and he was there, and he's a hack. He's a fool. He falls asleep in his own meetings.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And the people in the Senate, there are some smart Democrats and very smart Republicans in the Senate who are real lawyers. Ted Cruz is a real lawyer who was the Attorney General of Texas, and Dershowitz says he was one of the best students ever.
Oh,
at
I
Harvard Law
didn't
School.
realize
Yeah.
he was a student of Dershowitz.
Oh, absolutely. And he spoke highly of Ted Cruz before, he still speaks highly of him. And so when you look at, I'm not a lawyer, but when you look at what the drivel that is served up by Nadler's committee to now to the full House, you're supposed to impeach a president over treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors.
They're just making it up now.
Yeah. There's, oh my God.
Well, he's kind of awake in this picture.
Yeah.
You know, the last thing I'll say about that Amtrak dust-up, Charles, first class on Amtrak is like a marble countertop in a double-wide trailer. What the hell is the point?
Yeah.
He looks awake in all these pictures. Google is not working properly.
Yeah, and I hope his family emergency is not serious. I don't wish that on him.
His family emergency was cheese on the hamburger, I'm pretty sure.
His family emergency is lack of brain in a human body. But so this idea that the Horowitz report exonerated Comey, vindicated Comey or the FBI is just absurd. And here, again, one of our most loyal viewers noticed this thing that for some reason, when you search the FISA abuse report on Comey, you don't get many hits, but when you put in corny, you get 163 times. And that's probably that optical OCR thing you're talking about?
I don't think so. That report would not be made with OCR. It would be typed on a computer and then turned into a PDF. The OCR error only occurred because we were looking at an article that was created in 1979 before computers were used for that type of thing, and it was printed in a newspaper and then optically scanned. This, I suspect, is being done because they know almost everyone, unless you are eagle-eyed, reading an R next to an N, it's going to look like an M. But when you try to search the digital document, you're going to miss it. This is deep state tactic right there.
And again, the whole thing, it's my father's adage, when you sit down to take an exam, make sure you think through, the questions being asked, are those the correct questions? And here, in this case, everyone's been hanging hat on Horowitz report this and Horowitz report that. The special rules that apply to Inspector General reports limit the scope of the inquiry to a place where you're going to miss the kinds of things that I hope John Durham and others have been focusing on for some time. So this report in no way exonerates the dopey bitch, James Comey.
And actually, I forget who it was, but there was another Horowitz testimony this morning in front of the Senate, and I can't remember if it was in that or a previous one, but they asked him directly, did your report exonerate the FBI? And Horowitz flat out said it didn't exonerate anybody.
Yeah, that was a few days ago, but again, he's in today basically saying the same message under tougher questioning.
It was better. It was way more legitimate what they were asking him in the Senate. How does that feel when you go to Congress and walk through the halls of the House of Representatives? That feels like high school. Right. And then when you go over to the Senate, you're like, ooh, this is much more official.
Well, I think the rules, the whole game can be the whole game can be changed on you. So when you have these, if they want to make sure that nothing really gets uncovered, they set it up so that each representative only has 5 minutes, and you go from
when they want to make sure.
So they have, Jason Goodman would ask a whole bunch of questions, but you wouldn't get your rhythm up because then somebody else, you get the Hank, what's the guy's name from Georgia who's I happened to hear him today.
You know what? I'm listening to it without looking at it, so I don't know all the people who are speaking all the time.
So Hank, I think it was Lewis or Hank Jones or something like that, the guy from Georgia who was like, yeah, global warming's really serious. If we don't address this, those islands in the Pacific are going to flip over.
Oh,
that guy.
Oh, yes, I did see that guy give a pretty long speech, right? He said the islands were going to capsize.
That's a ticket, yeah. You can't wear one of those crazy hats yet, but maybe you should think about it.
No, a minimum intelligence requirement to run for Hank Johnson you're talking about.
Yeah, Hank Johnson.
Knowledge of the Constitution, the law,
be nice.
and just not being stupid should be a requirement of being in there.
Exactly.
But it's not.
It's not. It's not. It's like, the Congress and the Senate have become a sort of equivalent to Hillary Clinton's other universe world of Wimbledon, where you could walk into the final of Wimbledon, even if you don't know how to play tennis, and collect a participation trophy at the end of it.
Did she do that?
No, I'm just saying that's the essence what you could do with the House and the Senate. Like, you're not qualified to be in the House, you're not qualified to be in the Senate, you're not qualified to say any of the things that you
Not
had
even
to say.
good at serving coffee.
And I'm talking actually about here Naylor,
Oh.
to be chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I mean, boy, he's not qualified to be chairman of the Eating Committee, let alone the Judiciary Committee. It's absurd. So, but we heard, thinking back the last several weeks, before we put eyes on the report, we heard all this stuff about the report exonerates the FBI. There was no political bias in what happened. We heard that coordinated across the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, everybody was trying to, bend our minds to believe that really it's not worth reading the report because it's concluded, the headline is that there was no political bias, and because of that, you really shouldn't waste your time in these details that Horowitz is now pounding and saying, actually, you really should. I interviewed a lot of people, and this is disgraceful, and we've got to fix it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they're talking now about the FISA court. Rand Paul was saying it shouldn't even be allowed.
I agree with that, actually.
Secret courts and things
That's absurd.
like this. And this is the first time we're aware of it being abused, but it's not that old. When did that FISA court come about?
78.
So it's not that old.
Right. Well, but it's in the era of electronic. So,
Right.
so the issue back in 78, when people didn't use email,
It wasn't as intrusive.
but now it's incredibly intrusive because you get to go. What is it?
Hops.
The various hops.
2 hops you could get to, particularly, so this is another thing we were speaking about on More Pain last night, was the concept of, is Carter Page an operational plant put into the Trump campaign by the CIA? And if the answer to that were yes, they could just say, okay, Carter Page, just call up Rudy Giuliani, Charles Ortel, Jerome Corsi, and then we're going to investigate all those guys because you called them and the FISA warrant allows us to do it. So they're doing all that kind of stuff all the time.
Exactly. So if we go to this link here, the Zero Hedge piece, the question I want an answer to is, when did people like Obama, who had to swear off on targeting Carter Page and other Americans, when did they know that these FISA warrants were total bullshit and that the Steele dossier was bullshit? I submit to you they knew long before. I submit to you that we don't yet have all the detail. Maybe on Friday we'll get some of it, according to Greg Jarrett, who read the letter from the FISA court with the footnote.
That was really something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Maybe we're going to learn more precisely, when did the first FISA warrant request go to the FISA court? 3 were turned down, I believe. And then finally, October 21st, one was approved. So what's the long history of that? We hear the Crossfire Hurricane only began July 31st, 2016. So if it were opened on July 31st, 2016, mind you, this is a team, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and others were on the team that couldn't find obvious mishandling of Hillary Clinton's email over the course of 13 months. So they're that incompetent. They can't look and say, wait a minute, 100% of Hillary Clinton's traffic went through a toilet bowl server system in Chappaqua and in the mansion in Washington, D.C. 100%, and they hung on to the toilet bowl server system and all the work product until December of 2014. They can't see in 13 months the obvious problems there, but in a month, let's call it, suddenly there are
100,000 emails.
They got FISA things going against Carter Page, and in this crucial month, This crucial period, July 31st, 2016 forward, is after Donald Trump has been selected, nominated as your opponent. So you've got somebody to beat. You're locked and loaded on that, and so you've gotten Hillary across the line. You've made sure that she's embarrassed more embarrassed than she should be before the 2016 Democrat convention. Now it's time to train the resources of the FBI and the CIA and others to rig the election, rig the general election. You have to look at it in that context, and you have to ask yourself, why all this FISA warrant stuff, all these approaches, all this activity against the Trump campaign. And here on October 3rd, 2016, you've got 340,000 emails that are sitting in the possession of the New York office of the FBI, and you got somebody writing an internal memo saying, we got all these emails that are obviously explosive, in so many words. We're not going to look at them. And it's only October 27th, 2016, the dopey bitch Comey says, well, actually, maybe we better pretend we're looking at them anyway. We got this locked. We got this rigged. Yeah. So let's go through the motions. And then Comey gets up and lies again to the public after a week and says, our vaunted FBI, we looked through all of them, there's nothing to see here. When the truth is now known that the FBI did not look through all of them, did not aggress. They didn't do what they would have done to you or me or Jerry or Stone or Manafort or Donald Trump Jr. or whatever. They didn't take every single email and say, all right, these are emails. The issue here is mishandling classified information. I now have a laptop that has a whole bunch of email on it, and now I'm going to go back and think through how many of these emails were created as a result of the illegal toilet bowl server system. All, exactly. And so every single one of these, I want to figure out exactly, we see 340,000, what may have been deleted, what were in the draft folder.
Right, they should be doing some kind of big forensic investigation to authenticate every single one of them, and where they came from, where they went through and all that. We've also, Reese is watching us here on Periscope saying that FISA, maybe deep state, it's only ever denied 11 warrants. And Comey said to Chris Wallace, they're very difficult to get. But that's not true. They're giving them out easily.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's just this, it's not right. And it really is, it's just the kind of abuse, actually, that our founders assumed might happen, not with precision on the technology and email, but the founders had been through, or their families had been through in England, despotic monarchies. And then after that, a despotic Republican government, Oliver Cromwell.
11 out of 39,000.
Yeah, that's really tough to get them.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. And then Tom Tyson is telling us that FISA's been corrupt since the 80s.
Yeah, well, it's got to change.
This is the thing that Donald Trump is doing that people who hate him don't realize, is even if you don't like him, he's revealing all this stuff. Nobody knew about this FISA court and any of this kind of stuff.
Right. And you could sit there, and what's that adage? First they come for your neighbor, then they come for you. And so really, I believe people on the progressive wing, the true progressive wing of the Democrat Party, some liberals, and anybody who has money and wealth does not want to see this kind of faceless bureaucracy allowed to get this intrusive as our population ages. Because what the diabolical portion of the plan under Obama and Obamacare was to tighten the screws on you with surveillance and then put you in a place where it doesn't matter how much money you have, that if they control the healthcare system and say, oh no, you're a Republican, you can't get that life-extending surgery, even though you want to pay for it, because it's a tax on the system. This doctor should be tending to somebody else over here. We're going to make that call for you. That's the direction I believe they were going. And instead of, and your father and others may not like the idea of more doctors and nurses, but instead of going down that direction and saying, look, we've got a limited population of doctors, and in particular, many are dropping out because the system's so expensive and complicated.
NYU made medical school free, I saw. Right. I was like, what?
That's good.
Well, but they're also buying every single hospital, so I wonder where that deal shakes out.
Exactly.
You probably have to be chained to a hospital desk for the rest of your life.
But I want to know, and I don't think we should permit the James Comey answers. I want to know from Obama himself, from Jared herself, from Loretta Lynch herself, I want to know how much each of them knew about this approach. This is not a minor thing to spy on the campaign of the Republican nominee, and to assist and to cover up epic fraud at the Clinton Foundation at the same time. I mean, this is not something you can say, well, it's just traffic. Everybody does it. People, turn their library books in late, that kind of stuff. I mean, this is not that. And the Wall Street Journal, and we put it up briefly, but you don't have to go back to it. The Wall Street Journal points out, I think justifiably, that nobody's walking the plank for this. So we can't just make the lawyer Kleinsmith, it's the Zero Hedge piece, we can't just make this Kleinsmith dude the fall person. I mean, people have to understand that when you commit these gross abuses of power against political opponents, we have to ask ourselves, for how long did this happen? Did it go, did it happen under Bush? Did it happen under Bill Clinton? Did it happen under H.W. Bush? We can't say, well, let's restrict this to 2015-16. Let's only focus on either Hillary or Trump. You can't do that. And here we do have some reporting in the past that Obama directed Clapper to do this. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest that that Holder and Lynch and all would say, look, we're in power. The very same guy. I mean, I believe Barack Obama was quoted early on, either between his election and his inauguration or shortly thereafter, saying to people, "We won, you lost. Get over it." That was the approach.
Yeah.
I mean, you won a presidential election. You did win control of the House and the Senate temporarily. That doesn't mean that you just get to do whatever you want. You remake the Constitution in your image. That's not the way it works here.
Oh, forget the Constitution. He's destroying that.
That's all. Yeah. Slave owners wrote it. It's obviously bullshit. Let's forget about it. That's not the way it works.
No. He's down with, Weather Underground, Mau Mau uprisings, those type of things.
Yeah. So, and Ron Johnson, who I've had the pleasure of meeting a few times, he is a business dude who got drawn into politics, and he's a straight-talking Midwesterner, and he makes the excellent point. Based on the rules as he reads and his staff reads them, as this investigation proceeded, it should have been shut down well before Rat Rodenstein got involved, hiring Mueller to target Trump. I mean, it's well before then it should have been shut down, and that it was not shut down, that it was still used as a pretext for opening the Mueller investigation and then keeping the Mueller thing running through the midterms in 2018 is ridiculous. It's diabolically bad.
We've heard absolutely nothing from Rod Rodenstein. I had prepared this wonderful graphic, and we never really got the chance to fully enjoy him being done.
Yeah, and he needs to be done. And it can't be. I mean, it can't be that when things go wrong, you put Corinne Brown and Steve Stockman and those type of people in jail for relatively minor offenses. But when the people who are running the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice, when they trammel on the rights of political opponents to serve the interests of a politically charged campaign, I mean, it's a corrupt cabal involving the Clintons.
Huge cash payout.
Yeah, no. So now, this is, I had not seen this national interest before, and I did read the letter that Donald Trump's people sent, which I think Donald Trump was very much, he probably said, put this in. I want you to make sure to put this in. A fair amount of that was done. I think that letter should be mandatory reading. It really should be. And we'll see.
Do they include the letter here?
Yeah, a 6-page letter. You see the red thing here?
Yes. Incidentally, speaking of red things, somebody is just boosting the saturation. There's no way that Trump is that orange.
Well, he has been spending time in Palm Beach.
Why doesn't he just ditch this ridiculous makeup? It just looks terrible.
I don't know.
By the way, Hannity is doing the same thing.
Oh, is Hannity going full orange?
I mean, I can see where his makeup stops and his hair begins. I don't know why these guys think that looks okay.
Yeah.
It's totally weird. So what's your take on the letter? It's mandatory reading. And
Because, I mean, it's Trump fighting for himself, but also for all future presidents. I mean,
Right.
What they have done here, the House has basically done what it wants to do.
Weaponizing impeachment, what they warned us not to do.
Right, and they think that, it's like because you have a right to be believed, the same idea. We have a
Right.
right to believe that this is an impeachment, articles of impeachment, when it's nothing, it's absurd.
Well,
Where are
they
the
have.
crimes? There are no crimes alleged. Where are the high crimes? None of those. And we have to drop everything. And who's making these arguments? What's the source of all this? What's the motivation of the whistleblower? What is the whistleblower trying to protect? What defects may exist in the whistleblower's background?
Something really good came out in the Senate testimony today regarding the whistleblower, because I had been having some back and forth online with people, because I think on Kevin Shipp's show, The Intelligence Assessment, we had said that there is no provision for anonymity for the whistleblower. And somebody said, that's wrong. It wasn't the Whistleblower Act, it was some other act, but they clarified it today. They said that, like in the case of Kevin Shipp, he was saying, hey, there's a security breach in the network of whatever it is in the State Department, some system in every embassy. So he's blowing the whistle on that. He can remain anonymous because he's not accusing someone of a crime. He's pointing out a technical problem. But when you say Donald Trump did X, Y, and Z and that was a crime, then you do not have
Of course not.
anonymity.
Of course
and Horowitz himself said that today.
No, of course. I mean, that's the thing. What I love, when you get these lawyers who don't really, the bottom half of their class, the Nadler wing of a law school, there's a hierarchy, right? And the Constitution does grant or enshrine certain rights that we have as citizens in this country, and they include the right to face your accuser.
Yeah.
So you can't, by operation of a contract, take away the right.
Or a law.
Or you can't. You just simply can't do that. But that will not stop the potato heads. And I could use another description. Well, let's just call them the potato heads, who are the pundits at CNN, communist MSNBC and CNN, and that doesn't stop them from making these arguments. Which the second you're on television or you're a host, you're an anchor, you're paid to do this. People in the public will say, well, the guy's paid, he must know something we don't know. He's doing this all. Well, I'm inclined to believe Jake Tapper or fake Yapper or whatever.
Ooh, big mistake.
Well, right, and that's the advantages here that the media, the corrupt media, corporocrat, unregulated globalist complex has. The ability to influence the hearts and minds of people. I ought to just tune it all out. And then the insiders do what they want, is something we have to change. And I think we're trying to change that with these podcasts and what you're doing, Jason, with Crowdsource the Truth.
Well, thank you, Charles. I've been looking at some other people who are having videos. Rob Schneider, the funny and good comedian who's been in movies, has a lot less people watching his podcast than this one.
Well, it could be. I mean, if maybe Rod is trying to talk about something that he really doesn't have a lot of experience with. I mean, if we're talking about some of the movies he did or what Sly Stallone is like to be with, maybe he'd get a lot more people.
Yeah.
If he's talking about ethics in government, then
people might not care.
They might not care too much about it. So the issue of Director Wray, and I know this, we've had back and forth on Sidney Powell and questions about what the hell is she doing with Michael Flynn, and how could she not have known it was going to end up this way? But when my introduction to Sidney was through her book. I interviewed her on my radio show in the Washington Times, and I've met her in person a few times, and she's a very formidable individual. And I asked her the first time Ray's name came up, I immediately asked her. I said, does this make any sense? I thought Ray was a real problem in your book.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, absolutely. He's a disaster.
Yeah.
And so, really, Trump has no problem firing people, and for good measure, I think he should fire another FBI director.
Who should he make the FBI director, you think?
I like this guy Matthew Whitaker. I think
exactly.
He'd be pretty good.
I think they should have made him the Attorney General and just start fresh with a new guy who doesn't have a ton of Iran-Contra baggage.
Right.
What are they saying about this guy here?
Who?
About Devin Nunes.
Yeah, I mean this whole This is back in, Ray came out claiming that the Nunes memo was wrong. And Ray is just, to me, we don't need another Yale Law School.
How could you be anti-Yale? You're wearing the jacket.
And I'm wearing the hat. I was wearing the hat, I'm wearing the jacket, and I'm wearing the tie too. But that's the undergraduate.
Oh.
Not the law school.
Got it.
So anyway, I think Ray needs to work at the FBI for all of the remainder of 2019. I'll give him that.
Kick him out.
Get the hell out of here. So then we have a real ass clown, Eric Holder, daring to call Attorney General Barr nakedly partisan. This guy must believe that no one reads the news anymore. No one will go back and remember
anything
that this guy was cited for contempt by Congress, got up and said his job as Attorney General was to be Barack Obama's wingman. This guy, and this is Jack Cashel, who's a good guy, dares. I mean, get somebody else. Try to find somebody with actual credibility to make the argument. Somebody who is neutral. Try to get Joe Lieberman to say this. Somebody like that.
He disappeared into obscurity, didn't he? Is he out of government now?
I don't know. He's getting up there. He's got to be close to 80 at this point, if not more than 80.
Yeah, I think he's out.
But find somebody with, a quarter of a brain to make the argument instead of this Nimrod who's fast and furious.
Well, you can get Joe Biden if you need somebody with a quarter of a brain.
Yeah, that's right. I'd rather get, I don't know, get Pee Wee Herman. Herman would have a better chance of bringing this one across the line. This is an absurd argument.
You remember in Planet of the Apes where Charlton Heston finds his buddy and then he realizes he's been lobotomized? They could have Joe Biden play that guy in a remake.
So tonight we have this. I'm going to miss it because I've got to do a few more media appearances. But I'd like to see the YouTube thing tonight. I would guess that the Merry Christmas rally in Michigan is not going to be fair and balanced. Let's put it that way.
What do you mean?
It's going to be full on Trump, assuming that he gets impeached. I don't know if he has been impeached while we're on air. But I expect this is going to be great entertainment out there in a key battleground state.
If I'm not mistaken, Battle Creek, Michigan is where the Kellogg's cereal company...
They're great, Frosted Flakes.
But that guy Kellogg was a huge eugenicist and sort of part of the evil empire and everything. And also that cereal is loaded with glyphosate and high fructose corn syrup and all kinds of bad stuff.
I'll give that to you. I don't do cereal. I remember. I'll just a brief digression. I remember we had this fantastic French teacher in my high school, and he was supposedly a member, if possible, of the Albanian royal family, and his name was Burhan Yuka.
Wow.
And he was also the assistant tennis coach, and I played a lot of tennis in high school. So
I didn't even realize you went to high school in Albany.
Not Albany. What do you mean?
It's a joke.
No, I didn't. On the way to Albany, but
Albanian.
Oh, I see what you mean. So so he had a rule in his honors French class that you could talk on whatever subject you wanted to for as long as you wanted to, provided you talk in French. So these different wise guys in the class would get in there and they loved hockey or football, and they spend 45 minutes in honors French class talking about the Bruins de Boston have done so and so against the whatever, and then he made a mistake of asking people, what'd you have for breakfast? And it was cold. A lot of people had oatmeal and with molasses in it and this and that or whatever. And he finishes and he goes, "In Europe we feed that stuff to the pigs."
Nice.
But that's why I don't eat.
Well, I have a feeling you're probably not much for oatmeal.
Oh, I hate that stuff.
I could tell.
Like,
you don't like oatmeal. Charles, very picky eater.
Extremely picky, actually.
Yeah.
Well, as a kid, especially.
Right.
But anyway, so the UK victory down here, what people don't understand here is, I believe, the average UK person is a lot more left-leaning than the average American. And this was a contest between straight-up socialism in Corbyn and resurgent capitalism and nationalism in Johnson. And this was not like a close walk in the park. I mean, this was a stomp fest of Johnson against labor. And this opens now the possibility. We have cordial relations between Trump and the leader of Japan, which is a gigantic market. We now have...
That's his best friend. He was the first guy he met with.
Right. And so when we start thinking about, the credible business people who've been through this type of stuff in the past, we'll look at a market, and that would be the consumption market, as we talked about in the last thing, and say, all right, there are 200 countries that I could go to. Each one of them will probably need a country manager and a local team, and it makes my business very complicated serving 200 countries. Is there an opportunity, as the United States, the largest market in the world, to focus on just a handful of countries and get 95% of the bang, spending 5% of the buck on bureaucracy? So you focus on the United States, you focus on the UK, you focus on Japan, you tell the Germans that we've had enough of their bullshit through World War I, World War II, and now they're going to really not pay their NATO share and give us shit about, Green New Deal when they are operating all these corrupt Siemens and companies around the world. We tell the Germans, look, make your bed. You don't want to be part of our umbrella? Go try to work with the Russians, because that's worked so successfly in your past.
Yeah, Germans and Russians really get along
They
well.
get along great. That's a high probability approach, that one. And while you're at it, keep those borders open, have all those people from the Middle East come and settle inside your, and we'll stay in touch. Give us a call in 10 or 20 years and we'll see how that works. I mean, there's an opportunity here for Trump to just work with a few key allies. Maybe Brazil as well, but a few key allies, maybe, have an election in France, you get rid of,
Macron.
Macaloon.
Real quickly, Charles, I don't know if you remember this story, but when Trump went to see Shinzo Abe in Japan, he didn't eat Japanese food. I suspect Trump is probably a picky eater like somebody else we know. So he had a burger. But now the burger restaurant has the President Trump burger, and it looks pretty good.
Now how many, that's
yen.
That's yen.
I don't know.
Double, that's $18 for...
18...
Divide by 100.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
roughly.
I mean, in a city like Tokyo, $18 for a hamburger, I mean, that's basically what it would be here. And that's a double. So
we don't know how big that's a picture. We don't know how big the actual burger really is. That seems very cheap to me, but remembering Japan as being
very
extremely expensive.
But
so
nice bread.
The point I'm making here is that that everyone was saying that Trump is not popular. You got douchebag Khan, Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, whipping up the globalist resident in London to revolt against Trump, and now Boris Johnson basically stomps his ass. Right. And you could see we could do a lot. The United States could do a lot for the UK by quickly entering a real free trade agreement. People don't understand this necessarily the way they should. When we talk about NATO, there's the country that has contributed in a financial and human sense the most to our military ventures around the world is the UK. You take them out of the EU, you're left with a catering army of France and the the sunbathing army of Germany. You don't really have, and the Belgian. We don't want to say what they are, but the Belgian army, where the average age is like 56 of people in the army there.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. In some of these other countries, they don't have really the resources that they need, notwithstanding all the coddling we've given them for so many years. So,
sorry, real quick, Charles. Kate wants to know what you have for breakfast. I said probably just coffee.
Coffee, and I'm not going to say because I'll get in trouble with you.
Oh, McDonald's.
The small thing, without the egg. This, though, is very important.
That's Warren Buffett's breakfast.
What does he have? He doesn't have coffee.
Egg McMuffin every day, he said.
I don't like the egg.
Whatever. He's eating McDonald's.
But so I've never actually liked the yolk of an egg. But anyway, so this is really huge, mega huge news. Because one of the things that the United Kingdom has done for really decades is to go around the world to former colonies and other international trouble zones and offer aid. And then work in tandem with rich donors to whichever party you're involved with in the UK to concoct these extractive investment schemes where you take, like the gold mining project in Haiti would be a similar type of deal. UK was not involved in that, but a project to go down to Democratic Republic of Congo.
Chop off everybody's hand.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily need to do that. What you're trying to do though is you're trying to get the cobalt. Get the resource.
Oh, that's a big thing.
Right. Yeah, it's those type of projects. And really, that's the whole idea behind this movie, The Wild Fleece, is just these type of projects. What Johnson is signaling now, in much the same way that Trump did when he went to the CIA before he was inaugurated, he's going staring into the belly of the beast in the UK establishment and saying, enough of these crooked development schemes. You finance the Clinton Foundation, Clinton Health Access Initiative. These are charities that don't exist. You've been doing this for a long time.
Has he come out and said that?
That's the direction of his thinking. He's not specifically said that, but he's targeted this DFID, which is like USAID. It's a very big thing. And he's said now, look, reform is coming. No more of this grand schemes about climate change and fighting HIV/AIDS, and we write billions of pounds of checks every year, and we get these glossy reports from Oxford and Cambridge and elsewhere saying, yeah, the money was well spent, but they're unintelligible garbage in the reports. There's no like, here's what happened to your 500 million pounds. It's just like, well, we increased the propensity of 16-year-old girls to wait to have a child until they're 23, and that's going to increase GDP in the country by 16 points. I mean, there's just garbage stuff.
You actually reminded me of something important I wanted to ask you about when you just said GDP. I was reading this thing on NPR that's talking about, Boeing has been super screwed up by this 737 MAX 8 problem, and they've totally halted production. They're saying that Boeing stopping production of this one jet will reduce the United States gross domestic product by 0.5%. That seems huge.
Well, it is. See, Boeing is, I think, the largest exporter of any company, and think of these planes going to China and India and whatever. Each one of them is very expensive. Many of the airlines have to buy a lot of them, and so yeah, it could have a large impact on GDP. But what we have to GDP, I don't want to get sidetracked too much on it because I'm mindful of time. But GDP is a flawed concept in my mind. What you should really care about is how much of these planes are manufactured inside this country. There was a trend to get more sales to China and India, that what Boeing and others would do is say, instead of making the plane in Seattle or wherever they're making them these days, we will agree to make a larger percentage of this plane inside China, inside India. So the fact that Boeing's doing well may or may not help the American worker under the globalist scheme.
Got it.
So it's a little bit more complicated. What's this?
This was talking about the cobalt stuff that you were just mentioning, perhaps to do with Boris Johnson. And I know you're mindful of the time, and I'm doing nothing but distracting you.
That's okay.
Apple and Google have been named in a U.S. lawsuit over Congolese child cobalt mining deaths. But I think it's more the Chinese mining company that should be held to account than the companies buying the product.
Well, we have a good slide on the next page that gets into this. Retribution, as we think about this, retribution is coming. So this is a slide that tries to tackle at a very surface level approach the idea of whether aid is actually working or not working. So we have spent, the math we've done in the past, hundreds of billions of dollars on foreign aid. And these are just a few of the recipient countries that the Clinton Foundation says it's involved with, right? And I wanted to put out some very simple ideas for people to think about. We all as Americans, most Americans don't travel internationally. Many of them do not go to any of these types of countries. So they have no clue what they're actually like. They have no clue at, how much money has been spent inside this country for roads and airports and hospitals and doctors. And all that stuff has just not been spent yet in many of these countries. So I wanted to start by saying, let's get a sense for how big these countries are, right? So you're talking about Indonesia's a damn big country. 262 million people is a lot of people.
Wow. I had no idea.
Nigeria is 200 million. Ethiopia is 100 million. Vietnam's also 100 million. Congo is 85 million people. To put that in perspective, United Kingdom's only 65.
Wow.
Right? So this is a very big, these are large populations. Unlike the United States, 82.5% of our populations are in cities, okay? In these other countries, in Ethiopia, only 21% Congo, 45%. Uganda, 24%, right? So you think about this just from, you're trying to serve customers. You're trying to sell, Lay's potato chips
To Uganda.
in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And let's think about the size, the landmass, the projections on maps. When you look at maps, unless you look on a globe, you're not going to see the true relative comparison of the size of the United States versus the size of Democratic Republic of Congo, the size of the United Kingdom versus the DRC. If you look at Congo, it's 2.3 million square miles, okay? And the UK, in contrast, is only 242,000 square miles. So Congo is 9 times the size of the United Kingdom, right? It has a few more people, but unlike the UK that has 83.7% of its population in cities, Congo has only 45% in cities. And so you look then at the number of people per square mile in rural portions of each country. In the United States, this is weighted by Alaska, because Alaska is included in the 9.2 million square miles, and if you took that out and maybe took Texas out, you wouldn't have as low a number as we see here of 6. Norway is only 3 in the rural zones. United Kingdom's 44 people per square kilometer. But if you're trying to go and cater to the health needs of people with HIV and AIDS in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, look at the size of this country.
It's huge.
It's gigantic. I would guess to this day we still don't know what's there.
What do you mean, like in the jungle?
Yeah, we have no clue. You can't get in here easily. You can't, send a team in. You've got all kinds of
wild animals.
Not to mention the local people who may or may not be interested in
you invading their country,
right, and stealing your gold, et cetera, et cetera.
They're not interested in that.
Right, but look at the size of that thing in some of these other countries.
They're all huge,
massive. And so the challenge of actually, if you're just trying to do good and help the health of these people, you've got no doctors, no roads, no nurses, no electricity. How are you actually going to minister to the needs of these people? And why have we been saying now for 30, 40, 50 years, we need umpteen billions a year to help these poor, starving people in Africa? You're going to see, and Asia and elsewhere. If we want to help them, let's give them the tools to help themselves. Let's not just put them perpetually in the emergency room as a basket case of people who need donations. Surely there must be some products or services or ideas or whatever that could be sold on the world market out of these countries here in Africa and poor countries elsewhere.
Well, I think there's a ton of stuff there, which is why the British and the Flemish and everybody has always invaded and
right.
kind of enslaved them.
But then you look at this issue of how much are these people, according to the CIA World Factbook, which may or may not be accurate, but does everything on a consistent basis, how much are these people spending per year per person? In Indonesia, they're spending $2,000 a person. Down in Ethiopia, $444. In Congo, $1 a day is what the average population is spending. You're not going to be, going down there with a PowerPoint presentation saying, why don't you take out a car loan to buy, a Subaru.
You'd show up and be like, does anybody have an HDMI cable?
Right.
Like, get out of here.
Yeah, that's right. So, the challenge here, these bonehead academics are sitting there saying, we need the sustainability goals, and we need carbon credits, and we need this argument for a conference in an expensive place like Switzerland, and let's get together after that in Mauritius, and let's go to Hong Kong, and let's write reports to one another, and let's coax all this money out, whether in charities or in academia or in government, for all these grandiose globalist schemes, when at the end of the day, this is the most recent data, you're still in a place where too many people are living on $1 or $2 a day. And it's not a question of, we're superior, they're inferior, or whatever. If you're just looking at it as from an economic standpoint, in the United States, we spend per person $41,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay.
That's for babies,
everybody.
Wow.
$41,000 a person. In UK, 26.
We could probably cut that back.
We probably could cut it back, but the point is, and we're selling this whole Pelosi and Hillary are up there like we're a disaster. Our country's a disaster. No, you want to talk disaster? Democratic Republic of Congo. There's a disaster. Ethiopia, another disaster from an economic standpoint. There may be much to the cultural lives of all these different countries that we should appreciate and revel in. But when it comes to putting food on the table, making medicine available, giving people a chance to
Water.
enjoy in good health the few years that each of us gets on the planet, we ain't doing such a great job, and we shouldn't be lectured to by the angry skull Greta Thunberg or the bug-eyed bartender AOC about how they know, because they're 16 and 29 respectively, they know how to solve these problems, which the best minds in the world have only exacerbated over the last several decades.
What about the Somali adulteress who has all kinds of great suggestions from the warlord-controlled state?
Yeah, she's got a lot to offer, I think. So turning then to some new things that we've been focused on, I think it's very important when we hear all the stuff coming out of Congress today to remember that President Trump is fighting the Democrat machine in a number of the big electoral vote states like New York. And let's look at this history. As the Clinton Foundation went from being a complete fraud to one of the worst frauds in history, the person who might have people who might have gone after it included Elliot Spitzer, who was too busy chasing escorts around the country. Then Andrew Cuomo, whose sister, I believe, and he have been involved in a highly suspicious charity. Eric Schneiderman, who loathed Trump because Trump wouldn't support his campaigns. Then a caretaker at Barbara. Now this Letitia James, who has made it her business to sue Trump for, wake up in the morning, let's sue Trump. Sue him for this reason, sue him for that reason, sue him for another reason. Today, I believe just now, Paul Manafort's suit in New York was overturned.
Well, it was double jeopardy because he's already got the federal stuff.
Right, but but you look at, this is a text from a press release that recently came out talking about, extolling the virtues of what Letitia James had done, policing the Trump Foundation. And she's, gloating over getting Donald Trump to pay $2 million back for his Trump Foundation sins. He has to acknowledge personal misuse of funds. Does that sound familiar to anybody thinking about the Clinton Foundation? Personal misuse of funds. Using the Clinton Foundation, which was supposed to do stuff only in Little Rock, to have a penthouse apartment with a Babylonian garden on the top of it, with probably bare-chested interns running around in the summer, diving into a pool, flying around on the foundation expense, using your catering system, catering services in the foundation building, probably not for vegan meals, but for whatever they wanted.
Yeah, but he's vegan, isn't he now?
He is, but that doesn't mean the Epstein equivalents who are visiting him out there are vegans. So here she loves this. She gets a lot of press for this. She has the ability of the Attorney General press machine, the considerable resources at the Attorney General, but they still won't go after the Clinton Foundation. It's a much bigger fraud than $2 million. It's the same idea. It's interlopers. I mean, at least Trump's family was from New York. Here are carpetbagging people from Arkansas coming into New York with a crooked foundation, piece of shit, that's never filed anything properly in its entire existence, raping and pillaging, literally around the world, and then getting tax benefits.
It's amazing.
I mean, so let's look at some of these details.
But Charles, do you have any evidence?
No, not any of the 195 preceding
oh my
emails.
God. People are becoming justifiably frustrated. They've got to do something, or the country's going to be torn apart.
So on the detail front, this is, they decide to pull the wool over our eyes on the Obama...
The fleece.
The fleece. Pull that fleece over our tissue of fleece lies, over our eyes. They do this MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding. And, to the uninitiated, that's a Memorandum of Understanding. That's got to be a lot more significant than an agreement or a contract. No, a Memorandum of Understanding is what you sign when you don't want to sign anything. It's meaningless. It's completely meaningless by design. But they say, oh, we've got a Memorandum of Understanding. That must be important. And you read the thing, that an opening paragraph in the representation section is, a single entity called William J. Clinton Foundation is a 501c3, okay? The name of the entity there was no organization called the William J. Clinton Foundation on December 12th, 2008, anywhere that was lawfully organized. There wasn't. Okay, but this thing gets signed, gets sent to the Senate, gets sent through our confirmation hearings as an example of how you can be certain that we've thought this through, we've tamped it down.
To the Senate? To the Senate?
Senate, yeah, to get her confirmed. She was a Senate confirmed appointee.
That's so bold.
Yeah, because it was this time of year. December 12th.
No one's paying attention.
Right, people are like, honey, are we going to go to Hawaii or not? I mean, the kids are out there already. Oh,
get on the Amtrak train and order a cheeseburger, quick.
A hamburger, but don't put any cheese on it. And so, this organization, if you and I get together and we want to say that we're going to create some new charity, the paperweight charity or whatever, we can't just say we're doing that and get a tax exemption. You actually have to create an organization, which means you have to have articles of incorporation, bylaws, independent directors, make truthful declarations. None of that is anything the Clintons have ever done. And here we summarize, there's several organizations. The William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, yeah, it had bylaws. They got around to doing those December 23rd, 1997. But for 62 days before they signed the bylaws, Hillary and Bill committed the organization to operate in a specific place in Little Rock, even though they had nothing to do with it. They were raising money for the legal defense trust. They were doing all sorts of things in the guise of a foundation that were illegal. And they then say, oh, well, okay, let's change the name of it. So they changed the name on April 25th, 2005, but the boneheads in the Clinton Foundation and their absurd, in quotes, lawyers, failed to adopt bylaws. And the significance of that is bylaws are kind of like the instruction manual for how you run an organization. If you don't have bylaws adopted, you don't have anything written down about how you're actually going to meet to conduct your business. Without bylaws, you're just prima facie not an organization. But they didn't have any. There'd never been bylaws drafted and submitted and adopted lawfully for the William J. Clinton Foundation or for something else called the William J. Clinton Foundation. And I'm sick of this bullshit. So I actually, yesterday, I called up the Attorney General's office.
New York?
Yeah. And I said, listen, you got a serious problem here.
What'd they say?
They said, well, I'll put you on a supervisor. Put you under a supervisor. They put me the supervisor. It's like, the voice, the Muzak or whatever of the voicemail. And to be fair, somebody did call me back yesterday, but I have heard nothing. And so again, I would encourage our subscribers and the people who are interested in seeing justice at hand, you're going to go after and persecute Donald Trump over 2 million in New York. This set of frauds in New York has never corrected any of their paperwork, because you can't, actually. But they keep operating, they keep soliciting. Even now, they're soliciting and raising money in New York, right now. So if we go to the next page. We've talked, and I wanted to put this out there so people can think about it. This idea that the presidential library is a big win-win-win, that it's all been done properly. The presidential library that's interesting. I just now see for the first time, I put this through spell check, and for some reason it didn't say anything about Utik Rock. It should be Little Rock. But anyway.
Yeah. Probably thought it was a name.
Yeah, the whole thing about the presidential library, the big element of the fraud is they brag about, as a result of the library, creating $2 billion in public and private economic development. In charity land, that's called illegal private gain, right? You can't you can't spend $160 million, or say you did, and give $2 billion worth of benefit, likely to political contributors to the Clintons, and call that a charity. No, it's a business development scheme.
So Charles, where is the FBI building relative to the Clinton Foundation? Because that picture from their Twitter handle seems to show this pretty distinctive looking bridge. Is it like right across the river from the Clinton Foundation so they can look right at them?
I don't know. But here's a list of things that people who have been through our previous presentations will know, so I don't even have to repeat them. No part of this library is legitimately a public charity operated consistently with the law. No part of it. Now, I happen to go back and reread carefully the Simpson-Thatcher, which is a good law firm, report that was issued late in 2011. And at the time I read it, it was 20-odd pages. I had skipped over one key thing, and there's a line in it that says, "We are not admitted to practice law in Arkansas, so we're relying on Bruce Lindsay's word."
Oh.
Right. So nice. So in other words, you've now written 22 pages of gibberish because you don't understand the local
The
law.
subtleties of the law in Arkansas.
Yeah, which require, among other things, and I checked this, I actually called out to Arkansas as well, that under Arkansas law, you have got to go, you can't just adopt articles and adopt bylaws. You got to take that package of information to a circuit judge and get a ruling from that circuit judge in the state circuit judge in Pulaski County, in this case, in Arkansas, saying that the entity that was created fills a legitimate public purpose, i.e. it is truly a public charity. And there's no way, I mean, there's got to be at least one honest circuit judge in Pulaski County. And there is no way anybody looking at this record would say, all right, Clinton, where's your articles incorporated? Oh, we don't have those. Where's your audit? Oh, we don't have those. Where's your independent valuation for the compound? Well, you don't have that. You know, what about all the money and pension benefits and expenses that these deans of the Clinton School of Public Service are getting? We don't have that contract. We can't tell you about that. What about your international operations? You're just supposed to be in Little Rock. Oh, we can't tell you about that. There's no way a real judge would have ever done this, especially if, or would stand by it, especially if you've got the heat-seeking missiles from the FBI going in there and explaining to people that this time you can't give a Clintonian or a Comean answer where you just say, well, yeah, I fucked up. Yeah, I fucked up, but let's focus on improving.
Yes.
You can't do that.
Well, Charles, it appears that the FBI building is on 24 Shackelford West Boulevard. Does that ring a bell?
I've been to
Rusty Shackelford taking drone footage of Jeffrey Epstein's island.
Common name though, right?
Shackelford?
Yeah, it's an old English name.
Oh, I never heard of it before. I don't know. It seems like a coincidence to me.
It could be. Yeah. But anyway, so let's again mindful of the El Timo.
Next page.
Yes. So then we have this whole idea, and for people who think that the this fighting HIV/AIDS thing is something that we ought to praise the Clintons for. I mean, this is diabolically bad stuff. That the Clinton Foundation never had authority to do any international work. It certainly had no authority to dispense drugs that
Even blow.
Supposed HIV/AIDS drugs that were never checked by anybody and that it turns out may have been adulterated. It didn't have authority not only to solicit money, but to take it from governments to the extent it was supposed to take money. It took money from governments. It was supposed to actually show you how much and when and for what purpose. Never filled any of those forms out properly. And I just want to give, out of all these links, if we hit this one link there, this book, which I actually go to Barnes & Noble at least once a week, actually, to see what new stuff is there and what I might want to read. And this book is still getting a lot of prominent display at Barnes & Noble, which they fight over, you know, which book should be.
I think you got to pay.
Do you have to pay? Okay,
to have good shelf position.
But this book is, you know, it's got 4+ stars. This is a real must-read book because this generic drug industry is not regulated enough. The whole process of you know, the decisions that we've made under this corrupt global system to allow branded companies to continue to sell HIV/AIDS drugs at high subscription, you know, they're now generic versions, but one could make the argument, as you see in the Podesta WikiLeaks, that what Clinton was doing was, the Clintons personally were taking speech bribes from the branded drug companies, and really what was going on with this HIV/AIDS thing, I think, is my working theory, is that the branded companies knew that trying to sell HIV/AIDS drugs, keep them, you know, a place that they'd actually work in the Democratic Republic of Congo,
never happening.
Is not going to happen. So if Bill Clinton says he wants to do that, you know, let him convince a whole bunch of idiots from foreign aid organizations that to give money to Bill Clinton to do something that'll never work anyway. And meanwhile, we just want to make sure that we continue to overcharge HIV/AIDS patients in the rich countries so that we can continue to get as much as possible for our branded drugs.
So just give them what they want so that the legislation or whatever goes in the pharmaceutical company's favor.
Yeah, and this has to be looked at cynically by people, you know, who are not necessarily wearing a Republican hat or a Democratic hat, but are looking at this and saying there are obvious problems if the entire country of Indonesia consists of people who subsist on average spending $2,200 a year each clearly the prices of drugs in this country are too high.
Yeah.
And let's think that through. Why are they too high? What is propping them up? Who's
Insurance
benefiting?
companies?
Insurance companies and people who donate to these crooked fucking politicians in both parties who can't be dislodged in anything but a wave election, i.e. the kind of thing that just happened in the UK. You know, they're happy to get together and have the illusion of tough hearings, when in reality what they're doing is they're just promoting and feeding off a corrupt system. And this really has to change.
Someone just commented that the Gates Foundation and India are not getting along.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's really for another day.
Another
But
show.
if we just continue on, Jason, for the next slide here, because again,
Yep.
these are all excerpts taken from that MOU. The descriptions are excerpts of what was in the MOU, and I tried to clean up the text a little bit. But the idea that the Clinton Global Initiative was anything other than a business development operation for grifters is, you're living in fantasy land if you think this is a charity. You have closed meetings around the time of the UN General Assembly when the most crooked globalists in the world are all descending on New York. You have closed meetings so nobody can really get in and see what crooked deals you're doing. That's enormously valuable to an investment firm, a law firm, an accounting firm, an investment fund, a rich person to get inside that meeting and network and put together high-sounding, sustainable investment projects where you get, more. It's just total rubbish, beyond which the Clinton Global Initiative was in theory controlled by the Clinton Foundation, but in practice the Clinton Foundation, as we'll see in a second, had not registered in New York. The Clinton Climate Initiative, if we hit this link, is interesting because the Clinton Climate Initiative is just a figment of Ira Magaziner's imagination. There is no lawful authority.
Ruby Shang, you've spoken about her before.
But here's the kind of, you get these kind of articles, these puff piece articles. You say you're all in for climate change. Well, Mike Bloomberg will write you a big check, and the Rockefellers will write you a big check, and the oil companies will write you a big check. What?
Give money or something.
Yeah. But here's this Ruby Shang taking credit for her work in Asia for the Clinton Climate Initiative. There are other articles about her which suggest that she and Magaziner were working on thousands of projects around the world. Well, who's making sure that the actual economics of these projects are being analyzed properly, that this isn't cover for a major league polluter to throw Ruby Shang a bone, throw the Clinton Climate Initiative a bone, a couple million, 5 million, whatever, and rape the country for $1 trillion. I mean, it's just, this is the kind of pie in the sky crap, and I'm not all over her because she's Asian or a foreigner or whatever. This is the kind of stuff that you don't do if you really care about charity. You want to go do energy projects, energy infrastructure projects around the world, go work at General Electric, go work at Siemens, go work at the Boston Consulting Group or McKinsey or some investment firm. But, I know she doesn't own a car.
Neither do I.
That's
I'm
good.
a climate
Right.
superhero.
You'll get your $1 billion check when we're done.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Christmas came early.
So the Climate Initiative, another figment, something that I'm sure that the various attorneys general of New York are all trying to get into these meetings in New York. The Clinton Juster Sustainable Growth Initiative, there's another, package of crap. It works with the mining industry. I'll bet, because mining is really sustainable. You go into a place and you rip open the earth to
Right.
excavate stuff deep from inside a forest. That sounds like the kind of sustainable stuff that I would let a Canadian and Lucas Lundin, whose father raped and pillaged across Africa, that's exactly the kind of stuff I'd allow somebody to do in the guise of charity. Because I'm a man of the people. Nothing is too grand for me in my service to you, the great unwashed around the world. This is just, so there are no grown-ups at this Clinton organization will look and say, no, we are not going to mask whatever we do. We'll allow mining companies that we have no control over, coming on the heels of Uranium One. We're not going to, do any of that with people whose real goals are actually to make a shitload of money in parts of the world where you have to pay bribes to get anything done. We're not doing that.
It causes me to think about that cobalt mining company.
Right. And then we take this Clinton Hunter Development Initiative. That's really rich. Here you have Maggie Haberman's father-in-law, the New York Times reporter, who should never be allowed to cover anything related to politics for any place so long as her father-in-law, so long as she's still married to this guy. The New York Times, glowing articles about the Clinton Foundation, over a long period of years. Here's this idiot, Sir Tom Hunter, who's made money, calls himself a Scottish entrepreneur, but I think his whole backstory has not been investigated carefully enough. The notion that somebody is going to get rich competing against, as they call it, Adidas and Nike and whatever in the sneaker business, starting a company out from Glasgow in Scotland and sell it, which he apparently did for a ton of money, and then go to a conference and say, I hereby pledge $100 million. Then have the crash occur in 2007-8, and whoops, I don't have $100 million. I was pledging 10% of my future income, which I thought would be $1 billion, so I was going to give you 10% of my $1 billion. Meanwhile, the Queen wakes up, in a fog, having had 17 bottles of Chardonnay with Hillary Clinton, and says, this young man, Sir Tom Hunter, $100 million, let's make him a knight. We'll knight him. It's actually happened. She noticed this, or people noticed it, and said, oh yeah, let's make him a knight.
You could just buy that, huh?
Well, but I mean, it gives you a sense of how, the Queen cannot be accused of being a deep thinker, but, she's been around.
Does she drink, though? She's so old. She must be kind of healthy.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Oh, really?
That whole family, yeah.
Wow. How could she be so old and so boozy?
It works, it works for some people, it doesn't work for other people. So none of these operations are actually charities. None of them are audited. None of them are filed properly around the world or in Arkansas or in New York. And yet, Letitia James says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to persecute Donald Trump. Let's go to the final page. Okay, here's some history for you in the Attorney General's office in New York. We're on to you. We've got, unfortunately, the materials that are on your website, and I haven't provided links here, but that are on your website, indict the Attorney General Charity Bureau office. On the website, they say this William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation registered on the 24th of June, 1998. Here's the actual rule about what you have to do when you register and when you amend your registration. This is lifted from the regulation section of your site. You're supposed to provide a copy of the bylaws. And if you amend your bylaws, you got to provide the amended version. So by the 22nd of December 2006, they submit for some reason a new false registration in New York, likely to copy over the problems. At this point, they're about to take money from Unitaid. People, as a guess from Unitaid, are saying, wait a minute, we want to make sure that this thing actually is a charity. So they put this thing in to the Attorney General Charity Bureau office. Is completely wrong. It's a universal form as opposed to a New York form. It's not filled out properly, and they make the mistake of sending this in, the Clintons, across state lines, making it a federal crime, using the mail, a federal crime. So on the 12th of May, they do another amended one, again without correcting this issue of no bylaws, which you need bylaws. You're not an organization if you don't have bylaws that the IRS has seen and the attorneys in the various places you're operating have seen. They don't have any of that. Then on the 9th of July, this is now Barack Obama's trying to clean up, as people are trying to clean up this Clinton mess. The 9th of July, they send in a knowingly false version of the Articles of Incorporation that had been amended in theory April 25th when it was filed, April 25th, 2005. They don't send in what you can find and what we have found on the Arkansas site. We've gotten back officially from the Secretary of State of Arkansas another amendment that was filed on July 8th, 2008. So they purposefully omit something that would have caused a thinking person, if there was such a person in the Charity Bureau's office, to say, hang on, this is total rubbish. And then in New York, if you want to do business in New York as a corporation, and as a charity, you have one set of paperwork that you have to file with the Attorney General's office, and another set that you have to file with the Secretary of State. And they only register...
No matter the size of your charity or the amount of money that you collect and stuff?
I think it's $25,000 or more. If it's a charity of the size the Clinton Foundation was. So they're soliciting in New York in '98. They never registered with the Secretary of State as an organization until the 29th of July, 2009. So you don't have to be Gerald Nadler and be, second to last in your class. I'm making that up. I mean, you could even
arguing on the train about a hamburger.
Right.
How does it get lower?
That's right. I ordered a hamburger, not a cheeseburger.
You're aware this is not Lutece, right? It's the train, and this just came out of a microwave, right. Fatso. Hey, listen, Fat.
That would be pretty funny.
Go do some push-ups and you have your hamburger.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't need to be an expert on charity to look at this and say, in New York, where there's secret offices at 77 Water Street that we visited, none of this paperwork for years is accurate. This isn't a charity. The Clintons live in New York. They have another charity in their name that does the paperwork almost right, but they don't draw the connections they need to draw to this charity, so they made mistakes with that charity. And this is all very meaningful because here in New York State and City, we've got these structural deficits. So you let these now, multi-millionaire public servants run a charity. Not only are they reducing their taxes, but they're providing cover for crooked allies of the Clintons to say that they put money into the Clinton Foundation, to take deductions that may or may not be legitimate. In most cases are not legitimate. Now, I don't have the ability to look through and see, let's take every donor, every political donor to the Clintons, and let's cross-reference it with every charity donor, and let's go through a nuts and bolts approach of saying, for how long have people been lowering their New York State, city, and tax burdens by claiming contributions to the Clinton Foundation and its various affiliates that didn't really happen. So they lower their individual taxes, foundations that maybe have said that they were contributing to a public charity, they are, I think, very much exposed. Anyone that's based here in New York that's done that, including the Clinton Family Foundation, which has made contributions to Clinton charities, saying they were public charities when they're not. I mean, we have to balance the budget deficit. Here's one nice way to do it. So the question should, I think, as is happening with FISA and Trump, and maybe he got impeached now, maybe he didn't.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So what's happening now, I think, is going to be, in Durham's mind, should be not, is this a fraud? How big is this fraud? How much money we can recover? It should be, how crooked is the Attorney General in Arkansas? How crooked is the Attorney General in California? How crooked is the Attorney General in New York State? And for how long have they been crooked? You're not enforcing these laws to give payback to important donors, be they Republican or Democrat. That's really the question. How corrupt has the administration of justice become? And you get to a place, even if you don't have a lot of money, where you say, I don't want this country to turn into a place where suddenly your personal property doesn't matter. What matters is each election, because if a new team comes in, they're going to rape and pillage in this country. They're going to take the other side's money, and then we'll wait for the other person. That's not, the republic that we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to become a banana republic, and that's the path we're on right now.
We could become a $120,000 banana painting republic.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody would come eat it.
Right. That's
and
right.
then put up a sign that said Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yeah, you should have put that on the side. Epstein didn't kill himself. That would have been pretty funny.
Yeah, that would have been a good I don't even think Epstein is dead. Now, but Charles, going back to the guy getting knighted, we're getting a lot of good comments. Thomas Tyson, I think, was telling us that if Mick Jagger could get knighted, anybody could.
That's true.
And then maybe it was also Thomas, maybe, I don't know, the comment went by already, but apparently David Bowie was offered a knighthood and told the Queen to go stuff it.
Well, so in the olden days, in the medieval days, it was a burden to be a knight.
What do you mean? Because you had to actually fight.
No, you had to provide, at each level you had to provide at your expense, multiple warriors to fight in the defense of the king. And so I'm aware of somebody in my ancestry who said, "Fuck you, I'm not doing that."
David Bowie.
No, 1600s.
Not really. David Bowie Ortel is his real name. That's a joke. That's a parody. Right. Actually, there were some other good things that happened at the Senate, testimony today. They opened it by doing what they should have done at the very beginning, saying that Adam Schiff read a parody into the record, that the whole thing should be dismissed because of all the different inappropriate things that Adam Schiff did. I still don't understand why that didn't come up the first day. Was there any? That's it for the slides.
I think, though, you said there was one thing you wanted to surprise me with or something.
Well, that was the Boeing thing.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
No, it was when we were setting up for the show and we put these things here.
Oh, yes. This Mr. Bill was given. Grab the Mr. Bill for a second. Squeeze him. I just realized that it talks when I was cleaning up last week. So next time you go to Chappaqua, you could bring the Mr. Bill. Well, Charles, it's been another excellent session of closing in. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Next week, of course, Charles, will be Christmas. So we will not be closing in on Christmas. We'll take the day off. And tonight, actually, in 1 hour at 7 p.m. So people are probably watching. We've got about 300 or 400 people watching us right now on Crowdsource 2, on Periscope, on D Live, on Facebook, the different platforms. But many people know that a malicious social engineering attack from an alleged fat slob, that's not my words, that's an allegation from a civil lawsuit against this person, has taken a strike at the main Crowdsource the Truth channel, and his closest confederate has put out a video making it clear that shutting down Crowdsource the Truth is his goal, that according to him, I'm not allowed to have a business that produces videos and puts them out on YouTube. So the most important thing for people to do if they want Crowdsource the Truth to continue is to go on to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. This person is actively badgering Patreon to try to get that terminated as well. So it's really quite amazing how this one individual and his confederates in New Zealand and elsewhere are so dedicated to the destruction of Crowdsource the Truth. It's something to watch. But I want to thank all the generous sponsors and remind everybody that at 7 p.m., High Dive with Lee Stranahan, we're going to be looking at the real meaning of the Trump Tower meeting. So Lee always has incredible information about Russia, Ukraine. He's really super dialed in on that. So hopefully people will tune in an hour. And if you're watching this at like 10 o'clock at night, you'll be seeing it on the main Crowdsource the Truth channel. And so you'll be able to watch Lee Stranahan immediately. Pretty good.
That's good.
That is good. All right. Well, listen, Charles, I'll see you later. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for watching, and have a great night.